I just want to take a moment, first of all, to acknowledge this environment that Brittany has created.
Yay!
It's really an incredible example of permaculture principles and the understanding of being holistic. Like everywhere around, I'm really, it's a privilege to be here. I'm really proud of her as a fellow permaculturist, what she's done. So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try. I have just a little bit of time, really, overall, and I have a number of books that I'm going to be referencing, and what I'm going to try to do is take the information out of this pile of books just as a bit of a source or perspective for this topic, and I'm going to try to express it, share it all with you in about a half hour.
What do you got? Which one you got?
Well, you'll see.
Oh, good.
We'll get to it. But there's an overall understanding that I'm going to start with a couple of words, a couple terms. I'm going to take a look at these words and the concepts associated with them and come to some conclusions about the possibility for life. What is the setting where life flourishes? Can you hear me as I face that way? What kind of works? Okay. Okay. And also, I want to look at what has happened on this planet and what's gone wrong and try to understand that. And I think that's important so that there's some illumination that helps lead the way, because we've got to move into what we see as a good way to live as a whole, as a species and as a planet as a whole. So, some of us can get going and get started, and that's very important. But we've really got to find a way to bring everybody overall gradually, en masse, along with us. One of the principles of being holistic is nothing works apart from everything else. So even if we're, got a clue and we're doing pretty good, and some of us have been here for 30, 40 years now, a part of the recognition of the way things have been on the planet has to change. And we've been making some progress, but keep, coming into obstacles, because there's a whole rest of the mass of humanity that isn't getting it, that still doesn't see that, wait, there's a problem with what's been going on. So one of the first words that I want to use, and the ideas associated with it, is culture. And culture, as a word, came out of France in the 16th century, and it came from a Latin root, cultura, which means to grow. And at first, that's all it pertained to, was how they approached growing things, food, vegetables, environment, developing environment. But eventually, we realized that it applies to our attitudes and behavior, a mindset that we use to cultivate any kind of environment in which to grow, in which we evolve and express ourselves. Like our culture, our arts, our sciences, our overall whole style and character of a group, like a nation or a tribe of people. Our culture is the way we live, and that's it's important to know that what that culture is. What is the essential mindset that we have established and decided on and chosen for ourselves, that ordains the choices that we make every single day, and policy as nations, policy as societies, conventions that we insist one another cooperate with, by law, or you're a criminal. You go along with this, or if it isn't something serious, like things that are serious, it could be even something not so serious, but then you're an outcast. You get alienated. So you have to go along with this stuff. It's good for the most part. One thing that I observe is, as a civilization, I won't say a species, because we have much more potential, but as a civilization, we drop the ball on that. We're not paying attention. We don't know why we're doing what we're doing. We're very unconscious And it's very just automatic. It's the way things are. And so we have to go along with it. And it's mindless. And unfortunately, because it went into a direction of not being holistic for a long time, it's dangerous. It's actually stopping life. It's killing life on this planet. And because of who we are on the food chain, on that pyramid of complexity on the planet, a whole lot of the rest of the ecosystem is going along with this. And so anyway, ultimately that's not a problem because life as the planet is much bigger than even that. You know, so but it's for our benefit. You know, people talk about we got to take care of the earth, and you know, to a degree I can understand that. It's not that we have to take care of the earth, but we have to respect the earth. If we don't get to stay here. It's for our benefit that we understand what it is to live in harmony and cooperation. Cooperation with natural law that has developed over billions of years. Thousands of years that we can touch and feel. Hundreds of thousands of years and millions of years that we can recognize, and billions of years as the primordial base where all of this thing called this life and this ecology of this planet, where that could possibly happen. Where you know, it wasn't, you could say that some great mind like a god or something just snapped their fingers and there was life. It didn't, maybe the possibility came like that spontaneously, but the way it's emerged and flourished has gradually evolved and been co-created amongst everything that's been a part of this here. The next word I want to look at and say some things about is holistic. What does it mean to be holistic? And in the dictionary, it says that being holistic is a comprehension of parts of a thing. It's a comprehension of parts, individual things, intimately interconnected and explainable, understandable, only by reference to the whole. So that means that nothing can be understood unless other than as what part it has to the whole, where it belongs. Where in nature, if we're not doing this, and if you look at the way we live, you realize, well, we're not holistic. Because we look at something like a resource, like a commodity, we say, there's an apple. I'm hungry, I'm just going to take that apple and eat it. And that's all I got in my mind, that's all I care about. And we see that's what's happened in the industry, in the agriculture industry. It's been very opportunistic. They say, yeah, we can go over here and just like, or let's talk about another industry, the coal industry. We can just blow the top off this mountain and look at all that coal in there. We can just go and dig it out. It's real easy to do that. All we're thinking about is the coal by itself, in and of itself, in the context of our need of, yeah, we can burn that coal. We have tremendous BTUs, you know, tremendous output of energy. But we're not thinking about where did that coal come from? What does it belong to? What's the rest of that mountain got to do with that? That's not being holistic. When we relate to things in the environment just by themselves in an isolated purpose and not, what part does that have in the whole? And so then, see, when we do that, when we look at things in an isolated way, that part becomes explicable, explainable, understandable only by reference to a specialized purpose. And one small purpose, a specialized, you know, like the human purpose might be to, well, you know, we gotta move these refrigerators. So, you know, we need some energy to, you know, like to make it happen. Some examples of this in nature would be like the Native Americans. I love the story about the way the Native Americans would forage. And this is general, I don't know in a particular tribe, but in general they had this kind of an attitude where when they're foraging and they're going through the woods and they find something that they can harvest, that they want, they would always leave the first one and go and find another, not take that first one. That's an example of holistic thinking. because they understand that, I mean, I could be really hungry, and let's say I come across and I find a potato. I'm really hungry. The only thing I got in my mind is being hungry. I take that one potato and I eat it. Maybe that's the last potato in the area altogether. But if I had let it grow and waited, if I'd just done something else for the meantime, for that day to obey my hunger, and let that potato grow, I might have 12 potatoes 4 or 5 months from now. Not being holistic, what did I do? I cut the branch I was sitting on. It's like an analogy, I love that one, of, you know, mankind these days, we're like sitting in a tree on a branch and we're cutting the same branch that we're sitting on. So that's some of that's an example of the difference between holistic, where you understand that potato, that one potato is meaningless. Yes, it could give you something to eat right now, but in the fullness of time, in the fullness of life, one potato alone is meaningless. The potato species, that's significant. That's important. And then you understand things like the one species is meaningless by itself. It coexists with all these other things in nature. And none of it makes sense other than how it all ties together, how it's all emerged. Life as we know it on this planet has emerged and evolved in interdependency for these countless centuries and thousands of years, and is the way we know it now because of relationships, interrelationship, and interrelationships that were honored and allowed to flourish. So all parts of nature are real, and it really can come down to something like this, to say all parts of nature are real, only connected with the rest of the universe. It's the only way to make sense. It's the only way to understand anything as what it is within the entire universe. If we thought this way and we looked at these things this way, we would not, as a society, as a civilization, be out here doing the things that we've been doing for these, whatever it was that we started to forget what we're doing. Being holistic offers the capacity for adaptability and resilience. The opposite of being holistic is being marginalized or specialized. I have a specialized interest only. When I have a specialized interest, the rules that apply to managing the relationship with that thing, they're only got to do with the special interest, and it's static. It's static. And within an environment of being static, a circumstance of being static, there's no room for variation. But if I'm holistic, I'm in tune with the setting of nature as this universe, which is a continuously moving river of change, a continuously moving circumstance of emergence and decline and reemergence and decline again and again in a spiral which just goes vaster and vaster and vaster, and that's the way life works. But if I have if I just tune into one little piece of that, and that's all I do, that's a problem. Life will not be able to continue and flourish. Now it's important, Buckminster Fuller is one of the pioneers of really what we call permaculture, and waking up to the appreciation of things in wholeness. And he had a great book. He's done a lot of work, Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth. And he talks about general systems theory in here. And he talks about the difference between holistic, thinking in terms of wholes, and thinking in terms of only one little area of focus, which equals specialized focus. And I'm not going to have enough time to read. I had some quotes in here, and I can tell already that I'm not going to have time to do that. But this is a book. It's a pioneering book, even before the word permaculture was coined by Bill Mollison and David Holbrook. People were at this. People were at the appreciation of, well, things aren't working. There's something that we're not understanding. So one next word I want to go on to is permaculture. And Permaculture, it's a notion that came out of the need to restore vitality to the ecologic setting of the environment. And that need became apparent when we began, different people at different points in history began to notice there was a depreciation of vitality and there was a depreciation of succession. You can picture what that word succession means. What's that about? Succession means, do we live beyond today? You know, will our kind continue? Will our species continue? Will things continue to grow? And so, like permaculture, well, let me next mention Rudolf Steiner. In Germany, in the early 20th century, industrial agriculture was already in motion for some time. It was a brand new thing. Until about 150 years ago, there was no such thing as the industry of agriculture. It was a local skill, a local craft, a local service that people had amongst each other on like a village level, on a local level entirely. And then it became business, a way to make money. And they started to find all these expeditious ways to make more money, to grow it quicker, to grow it more easily. And then in the early 20th century, that soon afterwards in Germany, they started to notice the food is not that good anymore. The food is not that strong anymore. It was more vulnerable to pests. And the food just wasn't vital. It wasn't vigorous anymore. And they turned to a man named Rudolf Steiner, who among other things was known as a professor, a professor of culture. No, I forget. He was a philosopher and he was an ecologist, and pardon me? He was the man. He was the man. He was a guy. He's extraordinary. This guy. The levels of the universal cosmic mind that he accessed were phenomenal. And so they knew this guy is the guy who might be able to try to understand what's going on here, what's wrong. And sure enough, he looked at it and he spent time with it and he understood, well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff out of balance. And he came up with something that's known today as biodynamic farming. He realized, okay, there's deficiencies and imbalances in nature, and his answers came down to these very simple things like, you've got to grow more yarrow and stinging nettle. You take them, make a tea, add it, I'm simplifying this brutally, okay? But you add them, you make a tea, you grow them, make a tea, put it in some cow manure, bury it underground for the winter, bring it up, you know, and mist it. Just take it like fertilizer and mist it, like one little tablespoon or something for a whole acre. Some ridiculously, just incredibly subtle introduction of something to an area, and that soil slowly started to recuperate and become vigorous as soil again. And it was a really remarkable thing that is demonstrated through biodynamic farming, even to this day. There's plenty of data out there to show that. I want to say that there was a definition I had for permaculture that, a quote from David Holmgren, and it's an early quote that that really needs some. Well, let me read it. Okay, so he said, and he was in an interview, and he said, well, Bill and I, we came up with this word to describe an integrated, evolving system of perennial or self-perpetuating plant and animal species useful to man. Okay, so that was a good start. But what I've got to say, there's a caveat to that, because the real purpose and flourishing of what we can hope to achieve through permaculture comes through caring more about just the benefit of man. We've got to care, and it's really, you know, like it goes on to say that they've evolved that in the work that they've done, Mollison and Holmgren, considerably from that first point when they were just starting with how do we grow environments for plants and food. There is a set of ethics that I'm going to read about from another great book I'd like to recommend by Patrick Whitefield, a man from England. It's called Permaculture in a Nutshell. It's a tremendous book. And he mentions the permaculture ethics are earth care, people care, and fair shares. And it's that earth care that I want to say something about. And he says here, earth care can be seen as enlightened self-interest, the notion that we humans must look after the earth and all her living systems because we depend on them for survival. But on a deeper level, it is the realization that the earth is a single living organism, and we humans are a part of her in just the same way all the plants and the animals are. We have no more right to survive and flourish than any other species. Notice how different that is than the way our culture, our contemporary society thinks. Some people even believe we're above it all. You know? And that this is just something that we're passing through a place where I don't know what the whole thing is, the reasoning behind that kind of a belief system. But we have no more right to survive and flourish than any other species. And thus, the protection of all remaining wilderness areas must be one of our highest priorities. So when we make our decisions on how to live, how to provide ourselves with food, how to provide ourselves with shelter, we've got to think about more than just what we need. We've got to, and this is our privilege, to be a steward. It's a privilege to be given the right of stewardship, where we can actually, like in what Brittany's done in her yard here, and permaculturists are doing all over the place, are creating environments where life as a whole can flourish. And I'm sure, Brittany, where are you?
Back here.
I'm sure you'll agree that when you relate to your yard here and your garden, you just don't think of this as a place where you will come out to get some food. You have a wonderful opportunity to, it's like a classroom in nature, isn't it?
Yes,
it's a world of difference to have a place like this to live and enjoy than like maybe when you first moved here, what it was like, a typical kind of yard. You know, got some Baha'i grass or whatever.
All weeds and dirt.
Oh, weeds and dirt.
Sand city.
So, where am I in time?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, because I got a whole lot more, but I was pretty sure this would happen. Okay, yeah. The way we look at nature. So Jay is noticing that I've got Masanabu Fukuoka's book, One Straw Revolution.
Yes.
Got to recommend it.
Yes.
And there's something really beautiful in here. The foreword to this book was written by Wendell Berry. And Wendell Berry really has grasped Masanobu's thinking and his work well. And he says in here that Mr. Fukuoka has understood that we cannot isolate one aspect of life from another. When we change the way we grow our food, we change society, we change our values. And so this book is about paying attention to relationships, to the causes and effects, and it's about being responsible for what one knows. Very important. That's the shortcut our society has taken some preference to do. You know, like, yeah, we know outside, you know, like, we won't talk about that. We won't disclose that. I mean, it's horrendous what's gone on. Eventually, I decided, and here's a quote about from the man himself. He's a farmer in Japan who started long ago in the 50s, I think. Eventually, I decided to give my thoughts a form, to put them into practice and so determine whether my understanding was right or wrong. To spend my life farming. And this was, of course, the course upon which I settled. He speaks with authority, not out of knowledge only, but out of knowledge with experience. He advocates do-nothing farming, where so many people come and they think they'll find a utopia where they can live without ever having to get out of bed. And these people are in for a big surprise, he says. A lot of people have gone and visited this man. He's not a writer really, you know. He's a quiet guy, unassuming kind of person. He's about his work as a farmer. It is not knowledge, he seems to say, that gives us the sense of the whole, but joy, which we may have only by not grasping, by not clutching. There's a quote from William Blake here. He who binds himself to a joy, he who binds himself, in other words, clutches a joy, don't leave me, doth the winged life destroy. But he who kisses the joy as it flies, lives in eternity's sunrise. The ultimate goal of farming, Mr. Fukuoka says, is not the growing of crops, but the cultivation and perfection of this human being. Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll just, there's another great book I'd like to recommend, Farms of Tomorrow, Revisited. John Butts recommended this to me long ago when I first got involved in farming and gardening. And this is a number of essays by principally one gentleman, Trager Grow, and it's edited by Stephen McFadden. And so one of the essays in here is the 10 steps towards farms of tomorrow. And I'm just going to outline it really quick, give you a sense of what it means to be practicing permaculture. The first step for farmers and gardeners should be to remain in the realm of the living with all measures and applications. That means only work with things that are organic, that are alive. Don't work with things that are synthetic. General principle. Second step is to arrive at the manure that is necessary for healthy plant growth by keeping on the farm, in other words, right here on the farm, animals in the right harmonious combination of species. It's very important to do that, to keep a farm. And to feed those animals with what grows here. The fourth step is to aim for great diversity, as much diversity as possible on the farm in combination with and as part of crop rotation. You know, I've heard that it's recommended to have about 300 different things growing in your garden area. So you've kind of got to get past just having one little bed somewhere, and if that's all you have and can do, that's great. But you know, if you have a yard, even like Brittany's here, you can have literally dozens upon dozens upon dozens of different things growing. The fifth step is to recognize that the circulation of carbon or organic substance through the soil and the air is the basis of permanent fertility. Everything that's here, once you get the right certain things in place, it's self-sustaining. It'll all, together with animals, it'll be, there's no need to go out and keep buying fertilizer, keep buying soil or any other things. You can actually get to a point where it's self-sufficient. And the sixth step is to strengthen silica circulation by encouraging microbiotic process. You need to let stuff be born and die in this earth, in this soil, over and over again. And the whole community of microorganisms is going to develop, which is going to be the real life of its fertility. Create harmonious, balanced items in the soil, plants, animals, and landscape as necessary basis of productivity. I'm rushing through this. Re-establish what we would call a food forest environment to restore the destroyed environment, bringing in hedges and bodies of water, ponds and wetlands, whatever way you can have it, like a little pool of water, like in a yard like this. It's great. Implement biologic weed and pest control. Definitely important. And establish a rhythmic order in the animal husbandry. Okay, and then finally, there's 3 basic rules. The first rule, I love this. The first rule is don't work too many hours.
I know that's wrong.
it's real. I've learned this works. Don't work too much. Don't do that. Utilize observation, reflection, and meditate. Okay, the second rule is to buy for the farm as little as possible from the outside world. DIY. Do it yourself. There's lots of clever ways. I'm making all kinds of little plant bed walls out of bamboo shoots. Like, it takes more time, but it's completely local and natural. The third rule is take all the initiative for your actions on the farm out of the realm of spirit and not out of the realm of money. When I first started gardening and creating a farm at All World Acres, I had a big urgency on my mind, and that was to grow enough food so that I could earn my living and be there growing this food, being this farmer. And the darndest thing, I would get my first couple crops of things and I'd have, I got a whole basket of squash. I'm going to take it to the market and sell it. I wasn't eating any of this myself because I had this whole thing. I was chasing after how am I going to earn a living? How am I going to, because I didn't want to just keep working a job and come home at night and just have a little time to work on my garden. I wanted that to be, I knew it was my calling. I want to understand this perfectly, like my life depends on it, how to garden. And so, all of a sudden I broke through it and I said, screw this, and I've done a bunch of things to simplify my expenses, and I'm not going to care about making money anymore. I'm going to care about living my life in a happy way, in a way that's very fulfilled. So, I think that's about where I'm going to wrap it up. Maybe I got one more story I want to share. A recent experience with our chickens. The difference between being holistic and being specialized. Being, I have one little purpose I'm serving. Bob Abenzeller and I have had a flock of chickens for, we're in our second year now. And not too long along the way, we found out that some of these hens like to sit on their eggs and hatch them. They do. Duh, So we let it happen, and it worked. We hatched last year. We had about 4 or 5 hatchings, where we let a hen 21 days, and it's very on the clock every time. 21 days, fine, they're done. The chicks started coming out, and that hen would sit on 4 or 5 eggs, and sometimes other hens would get in there with her and say, "Here," and then she'd be sitting on their eggs too. Anyway, so we were doing that, but we wanted to get our flock up and get more and more chickens so that we could make more and more eggs and have more and more eggs. And so, the thought was, well, this is kind of slow to, just because 2 people managing it, we only got 1 hen and we got to take care of the brooder, and so let's go out and buy chicks. So we did that this past month. We went out to the market finally, and we went down there, and this guy had a box of about 100 Rhode Island red chicks in there, about a week old. And we bought a dozen of them, and we brought them home. We brought them over to All World, where I keep them in a small tractor. And we had raised one of our home hatched batches there in this tractor, and everything was fine. Mama was in there with them and everything, and it was good. And I put these new ones in there. Completely different story. These chicks were born, they were incubated, they were hatched. I'm not putting this down, but I'm just trying to draw the what you get, the difference between being holistic or not being holistic. These chicks it was completely different. They didn't have a mother. They had no experience of a mother hen there with them. And so they were on the ground. They were not big enough to loft up, and I didn't realize that could be a problem. This tractor was protecting any kind of predator from getting at the chicks, but what it couldn't protect them from were fire ants. And I'm sorry, I feel like crying to say that in the middle of the night, it's the second night, I came in the next morning to find all but one decimated by fire ants. And that wouldn't have happened if they had a mother hen. She'd have fought those fire ants away. She'd have pecked them away. She'd have gathered her little ones up into the bin with her. So, okay, now I understand. And the baby, the one that survived, it must have just kept moving and moving all night. It cried for 3 days. The problem, didn't get bit by fire ants, but it was alone. And it literally could not live alone. It tried for 3 days and finally exhausted, it just fell dead. So, life goes on. We went out and got another dozen chicks. It's okay, I know, we got to put them up off the ground. Got a rabbit cage. This rabbit cage is up off the ground, inside the tractor. 2 nights, the third night I came home and I went to check them and it was 11 o'clock and I didn't know the fire ants would find their way up the legs of that tractor. And sure enough, and 3 of them were already being overwhelmed by the fire ants. The rest, I got 9, I kept them, I got them, I took them into my camper with me, and they did okay. Then, unfortunately, one night I came out to these 9, and when they were that little, it wasn't that cold, but they huddled together. And it's to be warm, but it's also being afraid. They know they're very vulnerable. Well, the next day I came, and 3 were dead. They were at the bottom of the pile. They were smothered. So I just want to say that, you see, it's like, it's a bad thing to incubate chicks, no. But without a mother hen at a certain rate, a certain pace, there's all, and I could learn, okay, we won't do it that way anymore, we'll do it, we need to do this way. Look at all this work now on my hands to do it. That's the difference between doing things naturally. It is said that when a system is designed right, work becomes only what is needed to take from outside the system into the system. If you need to bring something from the outside the system to maintain it, that's work. And any waste that's generated is pollution. And that if the system is designed right, there's no need to create waste at all. It all gets reutilized in the system. Okay, with a world of things that I still would love to talk about, I'm going to leave it at that. And thank you all very much for listening. Thanks for being here today.
Want to go get your yam? Yeah.
What's next?
I'm a turkey.
Yeah. You said 1:30.
Okay. But there's an overall understanding that I'm going to start with a couple words, a couple terms. I'm going to take a look at these words and the concepts associated with them and come to some conclusions about the possibility for life. What is the setting where life flourishes? Can you hear me as I face that way? What kind of works? Okay. Okay. And also, I want to look at what has happened on this planet and what's gone wrong and try to understand that. And I think that's important so that there's some illumination that helps lead the way, because we've got to move into what we see as a good way to live as a whole, as a species and as a planet as a whole. So, some of us can get going and get started, and that's very important. But we've really got to find a way to bring everybody overall gradually, en masse along with us. One of the principles of being whole. I just want to take a moment, first of all, to acknowledge this environment that Brittany has created. Yay! It's an incredible example of permaculture principles and the understanding of being holistic. Like everywhere around, I'm really, it's a privilege to be here. I'm really proud of her as a fellow permaculturist, what she's done. So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try. I have just a little bit of time, really, overall, and I have a number of books that I'm going to be referencing, and what I'm going to try to do is take the information out of this pile of books just as a bit, a source or perspective for this topic, and I'm going to try to express it, share it all with you in about a half hour.
What do you got? Which one do you got?
Well, you'll see. Holistic is nothing works apart from everything else. So even if we're, got a clue and we're doing pretty good, and some of us have been here for 30, 40 years now, a part of the recognition of the way things have been on the planet has to change. And we've been making some progress, but keep, coming into obstacles because there's a whole rest of the mass of humanity that isn't getting it, that still doesn't see that, wait, there's a problem with what's been going on. So one of the first words that I want to use, and the ideas associated with it, is culture. And culture, as a word, came out of France in the 16th century, and it came from a Latin root, cultura, which means to grow. And at first, that's all it pertained to, was how they approached growing things, food, vegetables, environment, developing environment. But eventually, we realized that it applies to our attitudes and behavior, a mindset that we use to cultivate any kind of environment in which to grow, in which we evolve and express ourselves. Like our culture, our arts, our sciences, our overall whole style and character of a group, like a nation or a tribe of people. Our culture is the way we live, and that's it's important to know that what that culture is. What is the essential mindset that we have established and decided on and chosen for ourselves that ordains the choices that we make every single day. And policy as nations, policy as societies, conventions that we insist one another cooperate with, by law, you're a criminal. You go along with this, or if it isn't something serious, like things that are serious, it could be even something not so serious, but then you're an outcast. You get alienated. So you have to go along with this stuff. It's good for the most part. One thing that I observed is, as a civilization, I won't say a species because we have much more potential, but as a civilization, we drop the ball on that. We're not paying attention. We don't know why we're doing what we're doing. We're very unconscious, and it's very just automatic. It's the way things are, and so we have to go along with it, and it's mindless. And unfortunately, because it went into a direction of not being holistic for a long time, it's dangerous. It's actually stopping life. It's killing life on this planet. And because of who we are on the food chain, on that pyramid of complexity on the planet, a whole lot of the rest of the ecosystem is going along with this. And so anyway, ultimately that's not a problem because life as the planet is much bigger than even that. So but for our benefit, people talk about we got to take care of the earth, and to a degree I can understand that. It's not that we have to take care of the earth, but we have to respect the earth. If we don't get to stay here. It's for our benefit that we understand what it is to live in harmony and cooperation. Cooperation with